My child, what I'm about to share with you didn't begin with a grand gesture or a perfectly planned moment. It didn't arrive with music playing in the background or some dramatic realization. It started quietly, in a way most life-changing things often do. Your soulmate wasn't trying to discover anything that day. They weren't searching for meaning or looking for signs. They were simply existing, scrolling through their phone, passing time, breathing through an ordinary moment. And then something shifted. Their friend leaned in, almost casually, glancing at your picture. At first, it seemed like nothing. Just another passing look at another face on a screen. But then, they paused. Not a quick pause. Not the kind you forget a second later. This one lingered. It held weight. There was something in that silence that couldn't be ignored. Your soulmate noticed it immediately. Because when someone pauses like that, it means something registered deeper than surface level. Their friend didn't laugh. They didn't make a joke. They didn't brush it off. Instead, their expression softened, almost like they were seeing something they didn't quite have words for yet. And then, gently, without trying to impress or exaggerate, they said something simple, but unforgettable. There's something different about them. Not louder. Not dramatic. Just honest. And in that moment, everything around your name shifted. Your soulmate sat up a little straighter. Because those words didn't feel casual. They felt true. Not different in the obvious way. Not about looks, style, or anything surface level. It was something deeper. Something that couldn't be easily explained but could definitely be felt. And here's what made that moment powerful: your soulmate had already been feeling it. Quietly. Internally. Without fully understanding it. But hearing someone else recognize it, that changed everything. Because when something real exists, it doesn't need explanation. It becomes visible on its own. Their friend kept looking at your picture, almost like they were reading something written between the lines of your presence. And then they said something that stayed. They looked like peace. Not perfection. Not excitement. Not chaos or thrill. Peace. Let that settle for a second. In a world where everything moves fast, where attention is loud and emotions are often temporary, being described as peace is rare. It's not something people say lightly. It's not something people fake. It comes from recognizing a presence that feels grounding, safe, steady. Your soulmate didn't respond right away. They just looked at your picture again, but this time, differently. This time, they weren't just seeing you through their own emotions. They were seeing you through clarity. And something inside them shifted. Because for the first time, they realized, this isn't just attraction. This isn't just curiosity. This is alignment. And then came the sentence that changed everything. Their friend leaned back slightly, still thoughtful, and said quietly, "If you lose this one, you'll feel it for a long time." That wasn't advice. That was recognition. That was someone seeing your value clearly, without being told what to look for. And that moment stayed with your soulmate long after the conversation ended. Later that night, they found themselves alone, replaying it all. Not just the words, but the feeling behind them. And for the first time, they stopped asking themselves, what if this doesn't work? Instead, a new question took its place. What if this is the one? That question changed the direction of everything. Because when someone begins to think that way, they stop treating a connection casually. They stop holding back out of fear. They start paying attention. They start recognizing what they might lose, instead of just wondering what they might gain. And slowly, quietly, your place in their heart began to change. You were no longer just someone they enjoyed talking to. You became someone they didn't want to lose. The next day felt normal on the outside. Conversations didn't suddenly become dramatic. There were no big confessions yet. But underneath it all, something had shifted. Something subtle, but powerful. They started noticing you more. Not just your words, but your tone. Your calm. The way you didn't force things. The way you listened. The way you existed without creating pressure. And they realized something that surprised even them. You didn't just make them feel excited. You made them feel safe. And that combination, that's rare. They caught themselves smiling at your messages, not because they were trying to, but because it happened naturally. Effortlessly. The kind of reaction that can't be forced. And then something even deeper happened. They started imagining you in their life, not as a possibility, but as a presence. Not, maybe someday. But, what if this stays? That shift is everything. Because when someone begins to see you in their future without forcing the thought, it means something real is growing. Their friend reached out again later, almost casually, and said something else that stayed with them. I feel like they would protect your peace. Out of all the things that could have been said, that was the one that echoed. Protect your peace. And your soulmate felt that. Because deep down, they already knew, you weren't someone who brought chaos. You didn't create confusion. You didn't make them question themselves. You made things clearer. You made things calmer. And suddenly, they weren't just thinking about how they felt around you. They started thinking about how to keep you. That's when their behavior began to change. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But steadily. They became more intentional. More present. More aware of how they showed up. They started choosing their words more carefully, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because when someone recognizes your value, they stop risking losing you casually. They even found themselves defending you in conversations you'll never hear. Not loudly. Not aggressively. Just, naturally. Because you mattered. And here's something you may not know. They saved your picture somewhere personal. Not to show anyone. Not for attention. But for themselves. For those quiet moments when they needed to feel grounded again. That's not casual energy. That's someone choosing you, quietly, deeply, intentionally. Now, they're standing at a different place than before. They're no longer asking, do I like this person? They're asking, am I ready to be the person they deserve? And that question. That's growth. Because now, it's not just about their feelings. It's about their actions. They're thinking twice before pulling away. Choosing honesty instead of silence. Effort instead of convenience. And slowly, they're preparing to express what they feel. Not perfectly. Not dramatically. But honestly. Because they've realized something important. The risk of opening up to you feels smaller than the risk of losing you. And when someone reaches that point, everything changes. So when the next message comes, it may not look extraordinary on the surface. It may be simple. Calm. Real. But behind it will be something powerful. Clarity. Intention. Choice. Because what started with a simple glance, and one beautiful sentence, has now become something living inside their heart. And this time, they're not letting it slip away.